Hi. Today we're going to go through the new sets coming in Gold Road. There's 10 new sets. Start with the ones from the Overland. They crafted in Overland Sets there. Have the heavy set, Allied Refuge, stamina, health, and then blocking an attack reduces your damage taken by 11% for 3 seconds. Not bad, especially for easy to get Overland set. It's a lot of damage taken reduction. I can definitely see this being something that could be useful for certain encounters where you're really just trying to go super tanky. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Not too much to pick apart with this one. If you're tanking, you're gonna pretty much always have this procced. So pretty solid. Next set is Macabre Vintage. It adds weapon and spell damage across the board, and then another 150 for the 5-piece. Then when you kill a monster, they burst with blood magic, dealing 50% of their max health to enemies within 6 meters as bleed damage, up to 24,096 bleed damage. This damage cannot critically strike. It can happen once every half second. So yeah, this one seems like it's more going to be just for fun, for some easier kinds of encounters like low-level archive runs. It's going to hit for high enough, but as enemies get higher and higher health, this is going to have a smaller and smaller effect on that. If an enemy has 1,000,000 health and something pops on them for 24k damage, it's really not going to make that big of an impact. But for lower health adds, this could be a fun set to run. It's not going to be like the old Plague Break or anything like that. It does also have the killing blow requirement to it. You have to get that killing blow in order to have it go off. So for 12-person content, you're rarely going to proc it, or certainly not enough to make it worth it. 4-person content, maybe, like running normals. Could be a fun set to run. Again, like early arcs in IA might be pretty fun there. Fun set, you know, it's an Overland set. But nothing that I see really like becoming a super strong meta option. Yeah, maybe some dungeon gaming. It could be pretty good, but we'll go ahead and move on to the last set, Overland. Symmetry of the Wield. Weapon and spell damage, and crit chance. Then it adds 200% status effect chance while your health is above 50%. Adds 10% healing done while your health is 50% or less. I think probably this is mostly PvP. It's not bad though. I mean, it is on par with like Mother's Sorrow-ish for the just straight up damage bonus while you're above 50%. Like it's solid. It's not, I don't think it's quite good enough to really enter the meta as far as competing with some of the other really good sets we have, but it's not a bad one. It's an easy to get Overland one, so nice starting option. And I think probably for PvP with that healing condition, when you get low, you get a nice bit of extra healing. So you kind of have both sides of it there. 1/2 damage, 1/2 bit of survival. But all three, I think, all three Overland sets are very solid. You know, usually Overland is just kind of like, yeah, whatever. It just gonna kind of ignore all of these, but I think they're pretty decent this time around. I like the design of them, and they seem not overly useful, but definitely could see some people enjoying these. For the crafted sets, we have Theriker's Strike. This is weapon and spell damage across the board, and then dealing damage with the fully charged heavy attack grants you major berserk for 4 seconds, increasing your damage done by 10%. This can occur once every 1 second. So pretty much just easy major berserk at 100% uptime for heavy attack builds. I think this will also be really good in PvP. Heavy attack burst is a thing there. And, you know, a nice 4-second window. Pretty good for 10% extra damage. Also, heavy attack builds in PvE. Nice, easy to get craftable option that is a good damage gain. So, yeah, I think this is a really useful set overall. And it's craftable, so you can do it in whatever weight you want. Next, we have Highland Sentinel. This one gives crit chance across the board. They went really like, most of these sets, it's just like, all right, we're just going to go all in on whatever on here, which is kind of cool. I don't mind that. But the 5-piece is, while in combat, each second you stand still grants you a stack of Sentinel's Eye. Every 1 second, up to 10 stacks. Each stack increases your crit chance by 468. Each second you move removes half of your stacks of Sentinel Eye, rounded up. Exiting combat removes all stacks. Using charge and teleport abilities do not remove stacks of Sentinel's Eye. This one's pretty good. This one is pretty good. So if we look, it is 468 times 10, which is 4680 crit chance maxed, which comes out to 21% crit chance on the 5-piece bonus. Now, that's really good. If you move, though, you are allowed a little bit of wiggle room before you hit that 1 second of movement. So it does take a full second of movement before it drops your stacks in half. So you can kind of like nudge over and adjust a little bit without doing that. But one thing to consider is, even if you do have to move enough to drop your stacks in half, it only drops them in half. So dividing that in two, you're still over 10% crit chance on the 5-piece bonus when you drop it down. And then every second, it's going to build back up to that 21% again. Most content, especially like dungeons and stuff, I would say this set's just not going to work. Like, you just have to move way too much for it. However, there are a decent number of fights in the game where I definitely think this will be the best one to go with. Even ones that you might have to move a little bit because that bonus is so strong. If you're only dropping it every once in a while and your uptime on it is enough, it's still going to be worth it over some of the other options. I mean, comparing it to like Berserking Warrior, that goes up to 2410 crit chance on the 5-piece bonus. This one is 4680. So almost double. Really strong set, really limited set in where you can use it. I think people are going to over-exaggerate on both ends of this. I think people are going to look at it and say, oh, this is overpowered. It's too strong. It needs to be nerfed. When really it's only going to be overpowered for like select few scenarios. And if that's the case, is it really overpowered? And then on the other end of it, I think people are going to be like, oh, this is garbage. You know, you can't keep it up. It's going to be no good. And I think that's also incorrect because there are a number of fights when you can keep it up. So this is one of those I think I'll just have in my bag, probably. I'll have ready to go. Some fights I'm going to use it and it's going to be crazy good. This is probably the go-to for dummy parsing now, which is pretty awesome considering it's crafted. So everyone has access to this. Either craft it yourself or buy it off a guild trader. Super easy to get. So definitely helps those that are trying to do some parsing that might not have access to all the same gear sets. Well, this one's easy to grab. I like it. I think it's actually tuned fairly well for how limiting it is. So This is definitely one of the highlight sets for me for this patch. All right, next up we have Threads of War. This gives stamina, weapon and spell damage, and max magicka. Then your light and fully charged heavy attacks gain 100% status effect chance. The status effect is based on the damage type of your weapon. So a frost staff will be guaranteed to proc chilled every light attack. Lightning staff will be concussed every light attack, etc. I think for some classes, especially like as a really easy to get starter set, this is going to be super good. Wardens definitely jump out because they have the increased chilled damage. Their chilled hits really hard. So having that guaranteed on every light attack, yeah, that's, I mean, comparing the tooltip to something like Pillar of Nirn for just straight up single target damage, the proc from having that guaranteed status effect on a Warden should be quite a bit higher. That said, the 2 to 4 piece bonuses are not the best. The thing is, if they made those 2 to 4 piece bonuses like crit, weapon, spell damage, it could be a little bit overtuned, I think, for certain classes. But even with that, I think it's a really solid option for Wardens. I think for maybe for Sorks with the lightning staff, this could be pretty strong there too. But outside of that, it says fully charged heavy attacks as well. I don't think this is going to be good on heavy attack builds though, because essentially you're cutting the effectiveness in half because you're not going to proc it as often. Whereas with the light attack, you're getting this damage once per second on a light attack build. So it's definitely better suited for that. If you want to do heavy attack build, this Theriker's Strike is way better for that, I would say. But for a light attack build, like on a Warden or a Sork, at the minimum, it's a really good starter set. But I think it could be at least competitive with some of the other strong options. I think this is probably the overall like most complete set of like Overland and crafted sets we've seen maybe ever in a chapter. Like they're just like they're solid. So yeah, good job Zos on these sets. I think they're really fun this time around. We also have the trial sets though. Lucent Citadel. We'll go through those. First is the heavy one here. This one is called Lucent Echoes. You get healing taken, minor Aegis, max health, and then while you have more than 50% health, increase your crit damage and healing of your group members by 15%. Group members wearing Lucent Echoes cannot benefit from this effect. And then while you have 50% or less health, reduce your damage taken from monsters by 20%. So the group members wearing this cannot benefit part, I think that is so that tanks run it. They want to make sure. I mean, it's built as a tank set, but it seems like they want to make sure that this is actually run on tanks and you don't just slap it on whoever. Because if you put it on a DPS, then they would not get their crit damage from that. But overall, this is a really good set. Like, really good. Easy 15% crit damage for the group. And then it has that nice stipulation there too for tanks to have some extra survival. If they get low, all of a sudden 20% reduced damage taken kicks in. So this is a really nice set. I love the idea behind it. It's nice and easy. And it kind of plays to both ends of, you know, because you introduce these sets that are just survival and it's like, well, I'm not giving something to my group. But then also you have your sets that are only group buff oriented and it's like, well, It'd be nice if I had a little more survival in my set. Well, this kind of gives you both. It has both ends of it there. There have definitely been a lot of people asking about if this is just going to replace EC. I think maybe for like the really high-end groups who are already very consistently sitting comfortably at the crit damage cap with EC, maybe they could drop EC and use this instead. But I think for most groups, you would be better off just running both. Because realistically, if you go and look at uptimes on crit damage buffs in like 95% of groups that run, maybe higher than that, they're not great. And people are generally trying to build for like around 125%, but then you go look and you had 25% Warhorn crit damage uptime. I think most groups should probably just run both. And I think overall that would probably be, again, this is if you're already sitting really well near that cap and not having any issues, you know, maybe don't run both. It might be an overall loss. But I think for most groups, it would be more beneficial to just have both going and then sometimes be over the cap some, and have them kind of fill in that missing gap there. But yeah, it's a really good set overall. Really happy. Again, another awesome set introduced from Zos here. Let's go over the other support set. I think it's this one here. Yeah. Zoran's Masterpiece. So this one is Max Magicka, Minor Aegis, Mag Recovery, Max Magicka, and then increase your Max Magicka and Max Stamina by 1667 for you and up to 11 other group members within 28 meters of you. This bonus persists through death. So you do get some nice cool balls with this one. Another floaty ball set. It's okay. This one is one of those sets, it's not really adding in a ton of extra damage. But more resources, it's nice to have for all rolls. And, you know, it does add in some damage. I'm still not sure if most groups will. I think for 4-man, I'll definitely not run this. There's just simply not enough room for a set like this for 4-man content. For 12-person content, though, I think you could make a case for slapping this on someone, and it's not bad. I don't know. I'm still kind of torn on this one. I'm not sure if this one's going to make it into the meta or not, but it's free stats, and it'll go to all 12 group members, but we'll see how that one plays out. But I still think it's pretty solid. Could definitely see some use. So, and then we have the DPS sets for Lucent Citadel. All right, for the light set, we have Mora Scribe's Thesis. We get crit chance, Minor Slayer, Max Magicka, crit chance. And then for the 5-piece bonus, increase your crit chance by 128 for every major buff active on you, up to 1536. And then increase your crit damage done by 1% for every minor buff active on you, up to 12% crit damage done. So it's essentially 12 of each buff will max that out for you. It does seem bugged on the PTS right now. It's adding more than it should be for each bonus, for each major buff. Not really sure what's going on with that. Definitely seems like it's acting kind of weird though. Another thing to note is that the 4-piece item, Max Magicka, I think might be being adjusted to be like something more universal for any kind of build. So definitely hope to see that. Overall though, it's a very good set. It comes out just shy of what you'd get with Sulkzon. So Sulkzon gives 10% crit chance and 12% crit damage. This set gives 7% crit chance and 12% crit damage. So 3% less crit chance overall on this one compared to Sulkzon. So this one, you don't need to go and get any souls to pick up like you do with Sulkzon. You don't need the dying enemies. You just need the buffs up, which 12 of each is actually pretty reasonable. It's not that hard in group play to keep those up. Very solid set. It is light, and you do want it double barred, so that does mean you're probably going to be forced into some light body pieces, which kind of lowers the value of the set a little more compared to Sulkzon. But it's solid. It's yeah, really, really solid stats all around. Another, I can't really complain about these sets. They're all pretty good. Most all of them are pretty good. I think it would be good on Oakensoul. I would have to look at that. I'm not sure. I'm sure Oakensoul would get you a lot of the way there already, just from how many buffs it has on it. And then if you're in a group, it'd probably be pretty easy to fill in the rest. But I think even non-Oakensoul, you'd fill them in a group anyway. So I don't know if it's like necessarily better on Oakensoul than not on Oakensoul, but maybe for like solo or smaller group, Oakensoul has a bit of an advantage with all of those majors and minors stacked in there. But yeah, really good set overall. I really love the direction they went with these sets. They're just very straightforward. There's not like you know, do a backflip with a twist on a Tuesday and you get this buff. Like, it's just, they're all easy to understand. Like, this is just major minor buffs on you, give you stats. Health is above this amount, you get this stat. If it's below this amount, you get this stat. You know, the light support set is just give your teammates extra resources. This medium set is the only one in the neutral I'm a little worried about, but I think it can be adjusted and still be awesome. So we'll go through it. This one's called Slivers of the Null Arca. This one gives crit chance, minor slayer, crit chance, weapon and spell damage. And then dealing crit damage gives you a stack of sliver for 10 seconds. Can only gain one stack of sliver every half second. So crit damage gives you a stack. You can build a stack every half second. So 1.5 seconds will give you 3 stacks. That's the quickest you could get there. When you gain your third stack, the stacks are consumed and the crystals launch at the last enemy you damage, dealing 1311 physical damage. This damage scales on your weapon or spell damage. And then once you launch the crystals, you cannot gain sliver for 5 seconds. So essentially it's 6.5 seconds there, roughly. Best case scenario. Well, 6 to 7 seconds, we'll say, is probably like the range that you'll be able to trigger that. So if we look at the tooltip, we'll just say 6 and be super generous with it. 218 is our average per second for this, which is much lower than what you get from something like Pillar of Nirn. I think Pillar of Nirn is like 320 a second at the base. So yeah, like only like 68% of the damage you'd get from Pillar of Nirn on this. Feels almost like it's bugged. It's so low. Because, and the reason I say that is because the set is very limited in how you can actually use this, because the stacks get consumed and the crystals launch at the last enemy you damaged. So if there are other little side ads running around the boss, or, you know, something comes hopping through and that just happens to be the last thing you damaged, that is going to take the damage. So it's already a set that you're going to want to reserve for like really single target heavy kind of situations where you can guarantee that damage is going to be on that main target. So to have the tooltip that much lower, but yeah, it almost feels like it's bugged. Like it should be hitting 3 times maybe. Because 1311, if you hit 3 times, would be 3933. So divided by 6 would be 655, which would be like, this would be like double Pillar of Nirn though. So that might be a little too much. But then again, you might not get it every 6 anyways. It might be like every 7. So divided by 7, 561 for a set that is only single target, and you have to be very careful about it proccing on the right target. I don't know. I don't know what the intent is for it. All I know is 1311 is extremely low for the tooltip. Maybe if it was doubled, it could be in an okay spot. But yeah, as it is now, this one is not one I'm going to be using. But I think this is an easy adjustment. The design of it is fine. And overall, like the majority of the sets here are really solid. So personally, I think this is the best introduction of new 5-piece sets we've seen in years in ESO and any update. Like I see more sets being introduced that seem useful than I've seen in an update in years, for sure. We do also have some new mythics coming. All right, the Saint and the Seducer. While in combat, you gain 1 of 5 random major buffs, which changes every 10 seconds. Enemies within 12 meters of you gain 1 of 5 random minor debuffs, depending on which buff you have. The available buffs and debuffs are Major Berserk and Minor Maim, Major Resolve and Minor Breach, Major Force and Minor Brittle, Major Evasion and Minor Vulnerability, Major Courage and Minor Cowardice. I don't really see this one being that useful in PvE. I don't like the idea of the roulette. It does have like a nice big glowing like circle around you that has different colors for each of the different effects. So it should be easy to see which one you have up if you just remember which one is which. So for PvP, I think this one could be pretty popular, as you have a 10-second window when you know you're on that right one that you're looking for. So for example, Major Force and Minor Brittle, that one pops up. All of a sudden you have a 10-second window of 30% more crit damage against whoever you're fighting. So I think in some scenarios like that, it could be pretty cool, but for PvE, I'm not really trying to roll the dice on what buffs I have, and a lot of them we already have anyways. So, yeah, this one doesn't seem too interesting to me personally, but I think maybe some PvPers will enjoy this one. We also have this new gauntlets here, Rorken Steam Guards. Activating block while in combat grants you Steam Guardian for 0.5 seconds, reducing your damage taken by 99%. Can occur once every 10 seconds. Blocking an attack while Steam Guardian is active reduces its cooldown by 5 seconds. So essentially how this works is as soon as you hit block, this set activates. Not actually blocking something, but you press your block button, this set will activate for half a second. So you have, when you see a big hit coming in on you, you have a half-second window to time that block correctly. And if you do time it correctly, you reduce the damage you take from it by 99%. Yeah, it's a parry set, exactly. It's all about getting the timing right. If you mistime it, you're punished by keeping your 10-second cooldown. However, if you time it correctly, and you do get that 99% damage taken reduction, you only have a 5-second cooldown on it. So essentially you could, if you time all your blocks correctly, you can do this every 5 seconds. I don't know how practical it's going to be for a lot of PvE stuff, but it is super interesting to me. Like, I think it's a pretty cool niche kind of idea to add into the game. Yeah, I'm the same way. I think I don't know exactly when I'd use it, but I like the idea. It seems cool. And yeah, essentially you get you're invulnerable to whatever hit you block if you time it correctly. And then the third one we have is the Shadow Queen's Cowl. While crouched, you can see witnesses and guards through walls. Successfully pickpocketing a witness or guard applies distracted to them for 10 seconds, stunning your target. Decreases your detection radius and stealth by 30 meters against distracted targets. So, obviously this is kind of a niche, out of combat, stealing stuff sort of mythic, but I'm here for it. Like, I think it's cool to add in more non-combat stuff. And yeah, I crouched around with this on a little bit, and it was kind of funny. You can see like a white outline around all of the NPCs walking around, even through walls and stuff. And then the guards all have like a yellow outline around them. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's just something, if you know you're doing some thieving activities, it might be nice to have on hand to throw it on and be a little bit easier to see who's around that might see you doing it. Overall though, like I said, I think this is the best patch of new sets I've seen in years. There's just so many new useful ones. So some minor tweaks go in, and I mean, I think it could be even better, but really we don't even need that many tweaks to these sets. They're, for the most part, in a really good place. But like the medium trial set definitely jumps out as one that is just way too low on the tooltip and needs help. But I mean, if that ends up being the worst thing of the patch, like, I'll take it. It's a good patch for gear for sure. So good job, Zos. And I think that'll wrap up the YouTube clip. So thank you very much for watching. Bye.